So I'm like, but we still got this transfer coming up. We're still good. I'm still trying to find that silver lining. I'm still trying to find that one thing to hold on to. Hi everyone. I am smiling, but to be honest with you, I really do not feel like it. My name is Cadillac. I am the Draw My Life prison wife. And today is just another one of those days. If you are a prison wife or if you have a loved one that is in prison, you know how many of these days can just be dark and gloomy. And I have been trying, my best to, instead of going into my depressed state, I try to take my energy and channel it in other ways and try to do projects and I try to do all I can to forward my loved one, Marcello, forward his case. And I just try to make the best I can of my time. But it's like, things are really just getting to be too much. Okay, so today I found out some really annoying, bad news. For me, it's bad. It's just, I'm like over all of this. I'm sick of all of this. I wish it would just end. I actually feel like I'm way too old to be going through this. I've been going through ups and downs with him being incarcerated since I was 20 years old. I'm 39. It's been a wear and tear on me and my family for too long, and I'm just sick of this situation. Anyways, so I met Marcello and been with him for the last 20 years. And for 18 plus of those years, he's been incarcerated. It's way more. The time that we were together we've been apart times 10 to 15 times that. And though we've been apart all these years, we've always maintained a relationship. Like, we've always stayed together. Like, no matter how far he goes, I still go and visit him, and I still write, and we have phone calls and everything. But it's like, I haven't spoke to him since a week. So thank you to everybody, every single soul, everybody that has signed his petition. I started his petition because I'm just over this. I just want him home. Honestly, I've done enough time, and I've done nothing wrong. We can debate on whether he's innocent, but I'm innocent. I've done nothing, and my child is innocent. And we have to continue to be drugged through this system, even though we've done nothing. But so last week, I told him about, I got a phone call from him. It was my nephew's birthday. We had a good time, the family hanging out and stuff. So I told him about the petition, and I'm like, yeah, people are signing it, and we finally getting support, because for so long, I always felt like I was in this on my own. I went through a lot of this prison wife journey alone, and it is a dark road. It's very dark. And it finally felt like I have a support system, someone I can go to, and people are actually listening to my story. I have told this story for years, but it just feel like people were tuning it out, and they didn't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. But it finally feels like people are receiving his story, and in turn, it's my story, because I've been here the whole time. So I was telling him about how successful the petition is going, and I could just hear him smile through the phone. Like, he's always an upbeat, happy person. Like, he sees what I don't see. He always sees the positive in everything. It is so hard for me to see positive anymore, because anytime I find a piece of positivity, of faith to hold on to, it's always snatched away. It's always taken away and replaced with. But when I told him, I could hear him smile. He was smiling. He was so happy that finally, you know, somebody is fighting for me. People are actually listening to my story. And I feel like he was getting closer to coming home. If I could just get this off, you know, off the ground, which I have tried for 20 years, but I thought this was a difference in this year. There was different things happening, and I thought it could finally be our time. So I haven't spoke to him in over a week. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm steady checking my JPay email. There's nothing coming through. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, that, for me not to know how Marcello is doing, I can't focus. My mind cannot focus when I do not know how he is. We already aren't really receiving phone calls. Letters, I guess we're going to have to just go back to straight up writing back and forth, because everything, honestly, since the shutdown has been interrupted. It has not been nothing usual about this. And through this whole shutdown, one of the biggest things that has bothered me, and it hasn't been, I went through a whole ordeal trying to finish college where, due to the shutdown, I had to repeat my classes, and I missed graduation, and my job is like shaky. It's like we were put out of work. We lost all this money. We don't, know what's happening. Nobody knows what's happening. Everything's up in the air. Our family's health, we have to worry about that. But most of my family is like close to me. I can call them. I can see how they're doing. I can check on them. But I can't do that with Marcello. I just have to hope and just pray that he's okay. You can't just call him to see if he's okay. I can send an email, but they have to read the email and they have to approve the email, and all the emails are broken, like backed up. So whenever he gets an email and whenever his is approved and gets back to me, then I'm okay to know that he's fine. He's okay. All week, I'm emailing Marcello, are you okay? What's going on? I haven't heard nothing from him. That is not usual. I finally broke down and I said, I'm going to look him up on the DLC website. I absolutely hate looking up that website. I hate Googling that website. Because when I look at that website, every time I look at it, I got to look at how much time he has left. I have to look at that horrible release date. I have to look at how hopeless this situation feels. Because believe it or not, most of the time I forget about how freaking long he has left. I live in the now. I can't make future plans with him, because what future can we make when we're like 50, 60 years old? We can plan for that. I guess we can, but it's not really logical. Who plans like that for 50, 60 years old? So really, we're not able to make any plans like that for future endeavors or anything. So I hate looking at that website because it reminds me instantly, oh, Keita, this ain't even the regular situation. You don't really have that release date to look forward to like a lot of other people that do. You have basically nothing or very little. I have a little that I can look forward to. So I look up the site. I hate doing that, but I need to find out where he is. And I find out that he has been transferred. Okay. Oh, and another thing that I did see was they knocked off some of his time. It is nothing that actually can do too much of anything. They knocked off 3 years. So instead of his release date being 2042, his release date is now 2039. So that's that. 2039. How old will I be? Trying to figure this out. Oh, actually, okay, we could do it this way. I'm 39, so it'll be 49. I'll be like 58 when he's released, which I think they give them like 85% gain time. Florida is horrible on gain time. Other states get way more gain time. And that was in the courts to try to give them more gain time, like because Florida has a longer population that is in prison longer than other states, which if they did knock it to 65%, then we may have a fighting chance on actually having a livable future together. But with 85%, he probably will get home when I'm about 53, 54, I guess. So I look it up. They say he's in a Okaloosa something. So what you don't know about Florida, the shape of Florida is like weird. We have this panhandle, and then we have the part that comes down. That's the peninsula. So Florida is actually like really big, and they can put you pretty much wherever they want to. When they transfer you from a prison, they can put you where they want to. I'm in Central Florida area, and he was up there towards almost like, I think he was closest to Gainesville. It wasn't Gainesville, but it was right outside of Gainesville. So that was like maybe a 2.5 hour drive. And before I tell you that, let me get a little bit into the journey, like how hard and where I've come from. Okay, when Marcello was first convicted and sentenced, when you first get convicted in Florida, they usually put you the furthest away from your home. So by us being from Central Florida area, they transferred him, like he was all the way like up on the state line. We have Alabama, Georgia, and then Florida. So he was on the Georgia, Alabama, Florida, like state line, like way up there. So it was about a 5-hour drive. At that time, I was 20 years old. I had a baby. I used to work overnight. I made these 5-hour drives. And when you drive 5 hours, you visit for like maybe 6-7 hours. Then you end up visiting the next day for 6-7 hours. And then you drive home. You make it a whole weekend, because to drive that far, you can't really drive back the same day. You could, but it's really hard. But eventually I ran out of money, and I was no longer able to rent hotel rooms and rent cars, because I didn't have a good working car. So I would have to rent a car, rent a hotel room. This was a whole weekend thing from the time my daughter was a little girl and stuff. So I think I could afford that trip maybe once a month. And he was like 5 hours away in Appalachia Correctional Institution. I think he may have stayed at Appalachia maybe 3-4 years. I don't know. And then he ended up moving close to, I believe it was Jacksonville. He's been at several different prisons. They transfer them a lot. So he was by Jacksonville. Then he was by Gainesville at one point. And then they moved him almost down by Miami. They never would get him close to the Central Florida area. So finally, one day I got a call, and he was saying he was at a Lake Correctional Institution, which ended up, Lake is really close to me. It was like a 30-minute drive. That was 2011. So from 2002, when they finally sent him off from the county jail to the prison, until 2011. So that's 9 years. 9 years, I would always have to travel far. I would have to make these long trips. I would have to do like weekend visits, like at a hotel and stuff. It would be the most, trying to get days off from work. It was a big struggle, and I was getting older. I was losing my sight. It was getting much, much harder to ride that road. I would have to like try to rush to get home before nightfall because I had issues with my eyesight. I really didn't have anybody to drive or ride with me, so that was a whole struggle. But when he finally got back to home, I thought my struggle with that part was over. I thought that part was at least behind me. Now he's at least close to home. It ended up, I was able to visit him every single weekend, twice a week. When they had holidays, I would be at every holiday. Even if I had to work, I would come and see him before I go to work. I don't think I ever missed a visitation. And what's so crazy, when he was closer, it almost changed like our relationship, because while he's that far away, it almost feels like sometimes I'm in an imaginary relationship with like this imaginary friend or something. Like, to me, he's like the best person in the world, but all I have is like these freaking memories. That's all I have. I don't have a real relationship where I really lay next to somebody at night, where when I have problems, I really can go to them. I have like this imaginary relationship. And when he got close to home, it felt real. It was like I would visit him at his house or whatever, and then we would talk. We could have phone calls like every single day. He would call like multiple times a day. Like, they could call from whenever they wanted to. The phone calls were cheap because the closer you are to your home from the prison, the cheaper the calls are. The further away you are, the more the calls are, which makes it harder to talk when they're further away. So I'm like, wow, this is like, I actually felt like I was in a real relationship at that point, from 2011 until I would say 2016. He was there when my mother died. He was able to, like, I went to visitation the day after my mother died, and I was able to sit there and talk to, actually I couldn't talk. I was just crying on his shoulder or whatever. And he was able to keep calling me back to back to back and actually get through that with me. Shortly after that, he was at Lake. Lake started being like really like ridiculous. When he first went there, that camp was decent. It was the first one that actually felt like, you weren't being like harassed all the time. It feels like that, like they just harass you, honestly, and that they just do way too goddamn much, things that weren't necessary. Like, I'm here to visit my family. I have done nothing wrong, but they really make you feel as though you have done something wrong. So this was the first time that I visited, and it seemed so laid back that we were able to visit. People weren't just harping on you, no matter, like, every little movement you do. Oh, what are you doing? What is that? Jackson, this, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wasn't all of that. But that place started to change. It started to get to be ridiculous. And I was like, in the visits, like, they would mess over our visits. Like, they didn't care that we were there to see our loved ones. Like, they don't care. They honestly do not care. It's not them. When you're not in that situation, most times you don't care because it's not you. They would put you through the most. We would have to camp out. It would be a long line. Visitation started at 9. It was to the point we were showing up at 3 and 4 and 5, early as we can in the morning, because the line would be so long. You would have to wait in the line for about 3 to 4 hours sometimes. And if you got caught in count, oh baby, that's a whole nother hour and something. So you would be there from morning, just camping out, visiting the other visitors instead of your loved one. You get in, maybe visit them 2 hours, and then it's time to go. But you know what? I went through that every single weekend because I needed to see him. And this was the first time he was close to home. He was reachable. So I went through that no matter what. I worked overnight. I was in college. I would bring my college books there, and I would just, since they were going to screw over my time, I was going to make the best of my time. And I would sit there and study for like 2 and 3 hours while I'm waiting to get inside. When it's almost time for them to call me, I put my little college books back up in my car, and boom, we into visitation. And to turn around, once you get out of visitation, you turn around and do it again for the next day. You just wait. Like they don't really care. This is somebody's life, but they honestly don't care. It's like our lives are in their hands and they have the key to everything. But I did it because that's my loved one. That's who I love. And I go through it because that's basically what I have to. Those are the hurdles I have to jump over to be with him. I can't replace him. There is no other Marcello Jackson in this world. So I know the clear and logical solution is, hey, just Keita, leave him and get somebody else that's out here free. But somebody that's out here free is not him. There's no other Marcello Jackson nowhere. So all of a sudden, like my daughter was finna turn 16. She was about to turn 16. We were all planning, her visitation for that weekend. I spoiled her. And she was supposed to, she planned her weekend. And, that included going to visit her dad. And I get a call like right before the weekend, I think about that Thursday or Friday. And Marcello they had this big thing at Lake, and they were transferring a lot of guys out. And honestly, it was just way too much going on at that prison. But what bothered me was like, I had just told him, because I don't know how to say this, but I was kind of violated. Like they were doing way too much. My button had went off on my shirt. And it was like they went through this whole ordeal where I had to be strip searched, and I felt degraded. And I honestly don't think they went exactly how those procedures were supposed to go, because what I was reading how that search was supposed to go, it don't feel like that's how it was supposed to go. I felt humiliated. I cried when I finally got in to visit that day, and I told him I would never visit you again. If I have to downgrade and degrade myself to come here to visit you, I cannot visit you anymore. So I think I took maybe 2 weeks or so off, and I said I wouldn't be back, but I can't just leave it like that. And my daughter's birthday was coming up, and they transferred him out of there. Transfer him back up towards, I think it was almost by Tallahassee. He ended up in a Taylor Correctional Institution. Far away, out in the woods. I really don't know how to say this, but yeah, they don't too much treat us too well out there. I don't know if you know how to understand what I'm saying. They don't treat us too well out there. And I feel, I hate for him to be out there in those woods like that. Like, that's too far from home. That's too far from home. So he's out there in the woods, and I'm like trying to get him back home. They're saying he still has a good adjustment transfer, but they kept fooling around too long. They kept playing around. They wouldn't transfer. I would call his officer, and is he up for transfer? Like, you know, come on, because now this is years later. I have sciatica. I have herniated disc in my neck. I have carpal tunnel. I'm legally blind. So I'm like, these trips that I used to make when I was 20, they're almost impossible. I would have to drive to see him. I would have to make ice packs and sit on the ice packs while I drive to see him. But I'm going to get there to see him, no matter what I have to go through. I would be in so much pain. After driving, my neck would be so swollen. My butt would be hurting so bad from the sciatica. And it wasn't over because I was deep into college. Once I got off that road, I had to do my college work that's due. My teachers didn't want to hear, oh, you went on this long road trip. They don't give two flops about that. My stuff was due. Either turn it in or no grade. It was just way too much. So I'm like, but we still got this transfer coming up. We're still good. I'm still trying to find that silver lining. I'm still trying to find that one thing to hold on to. And right before they finally transfer him, he was supposed to go to Sumter, which was not as close as Lake, but it was still within like an hour and something. That's still doable. There's a big riot. Just about most of the guys, that's my complexion. I don't know how to say this, but most of them, they got transferred out. And this time, because it was a riot, Marcello ended up in maximum security. He said he had to fight for his life. Like, so I'm like, wow, this gets even better. Now he's in max. He had did from 2002 to 2011. He was just in a regular security prison. He was never in a max. And then from 2011, I believe, to 2017, he didn't have a DR or anything. Nothing. No write-ups, no nothing. So now he goes, and he's 36 years old. All that, you know, stuff you go through when you first go to prison, when you're a young guy and you have to prove yourself and you have to protect yourself. And this, he wasn't into that no more. Like, that was over with. 36. He's getting sent to maximum security at 36. And my 36-year-old behind, well, actually not really 36, because for a whole year, once he got to max, they cut out visits. We didn't have no visits. We didn't have no phone calls. So I really didn't have no communication with him for a year. By then, I'm like 37. So they finally give us our visits back. He's at the maximum security prison. And this is close to Gainesville. It's not really Gainesville, but it's like he's back. We're backtracking. You were by home and now you're back. So he's by Gainesville. And so after the year, they finally let him have visits again, but it was non-contact visits. It's behind this thick glass wall. And it was once a month it started out, and then it ended up being twice a month. And we were able to get, at that point, 2 phone calls a month. Just 2. That's it. If I missed them because I'm at work or school, then, you know, I just miss his call. So those were So those were like, it was weird because I hadn't visited behind the glass since my daughter was a baby, since she was 9 months. And she used to jump at that glass and wonder like why her dad won't pick her up and stuff like that. Like I hadn't been through that mess in so long, and I'm right back there at 37, 38 years old. So finally, he goes down to the lowest level in maximum security, and we get our contact visits back. Now, it is still every 2 weeks, and it is only 2 hours. Oh, yeah, anything in max is only 2 hours, 2 hours long. You travel that far, and you only get 2 hours. And if you end up coming late at the day, by the time they get you in, like after count or whatever, you still only got that. You don't have that 2 hours, because when 3 o'clock comes, it's closed. It's over with. You don't have 2 hours. But still, I drove that far for 2 hours because, I mean, that's all I have. I had nothing else. There's no other contact with him. So he finally got his face-to-face visits back, and when I had him, I really couldn't believe I hadn't been able to touch his hand, hug him, or nothing for almost 2 years. Marcello was on the edge of getting off. He was supposed to be off of maximum security, and that's when this whole shutdown happened. We had like one more visit, and he was supposed to be off of max after that. We never got that visit. And I was thinking, this is finally over again. And it's gonna be back to you'll be somewhere close to home again. So they shut visits down, everything. It's been 6 months since I've seen him, maybe more. And since this shutdown, like I said, the emails ain't even going out like they supposed to. We don't even get our 1 call a week like we're supposed to. Like some days he get it, some days he don't. I still work overnight, so by the time they give him the phone in the evening, a lot of times I miss that call. It's just, it's too much. So finally they start talking about giving us our visits back. And I knew that Marcello, and then also he got off of max months ago. Like I would say it was back in like February, March that he was off of max. But due to the shutdown, they weren't transferring anybody. So he still had to do an extra 6 months of max. Though he's not classified as max, he still didn't get any more privileges. He still had the 24-hour lockdown, 1 call a week. There was no visit. So he was still under the same rules, though he was no longer a max inmate due to them not being able to transfer. And that was weighing on him. He was like, when do my punishment ever end? When does it end? And he talks about just giving up. And I don't know what to tell him, because every time I get him back to believing that there's something we can do, and I try to do something, I get thrown back too that there's nothing you can do in this situation. This is it. I get pushed back to that spot. So I don't know how to keep encouraging him when I can't even see that happening anymore. So I knew he was going to be transferred soon, but I'm still thinking, okay, he'll be close to home. Then they make this little dramatic video that they released. The Florida DOC made this little dramatic video. And they said, we're going to have visits again, which Ironically, the visits reinstate on his birthday, October the 2nd. And I'm like, oh, wow, at least now. And I mean, everybody's like kind of upset because it's going to be a non-contact visit and it's only going to be 2 hours. But that's exactly what we have been going through for like the last, I don't know how many years. And I just said in my head, I don't care how long it is, even if I can't like touch him, hug him, whatever. At least I get to see him. Like I haven't seen him in 6 months. And I go and Google where he's at. They done put him 6.5 hours away from home. Really? I can't make that trip no more. I gotta go 6.5 hours to see him for 2 hours. I can't drive like that no more. And there's no way I could just drive there, visit him for 2 hours, drive back, then go to work. So we back to that once a month thing. When does this stop? I'm too old for this. Thank you guys. I'm sorry. I just really have to like let this go because I'm tired of holding everything in. This is too much. This weighs on like, and I'm not the only one going through this. There are so many other people. Like number one, I can understand that you have to pay for what you do in life, but they really don't give fair punishments. Number one, they don't care to even find, like, they don't try cases like they should. They don't care to try the cases like they should. They don't give you a punishment that fits your crime. They just throw a whole human away. And not just that human, you throw that whole family away. You take all of us and bunch us up and just throw us away. It didn't matter what dreams I had, what dreams he had, what dreams my daughter had. None of that mattered. They just took us, bunched us up, and threw us away forever. Well, until 2042. Like, we really need a system that actually works, that is there to, when someone breaks the law, they punish them according to what they did. And they rehabilitate them and give them the chance to come back out into society and be an actual viable part of society. But instead, our system don't do that. Thank you. You know what? Before I close out, I got the perfect song. I know y'all probably don't even want to hear none of my dry raps, but I got a song that it is the perfect song that goes with this situation. Okay, got my little shades on. But one of the things that always helped me get through anything I've been going through has always been my art. I pour my heart into my artwork. Like this painting was part of something I call Project Reach the World. And I painted this for when I was going to a Monica Arnold concert. And I hold up the picture. I hold up the painting once I get the artist's attention from the crowd. And I wear these big, huge, immaculate hair pieces. And once they see this artwork and they see my hairpiece, once they see this artwork and they see my hairpiece, most times they're intrigued to, who are you? And that's when it opens the dialogue of who I am and what I do. And well, okay, so Monica didn't get this one. Sometimes I'm able to get my artwork to the person. I was just too far back in the crowd. When I bought those seats for her concert, I thought I was closer, but I wasn't. And I don't think she was able to see it, so I wasn't able to get it to her. But this became one of my favorite pieces of art. If you see my thumbnail, I actually am imitating this pose. And that was saying that if I could just be as beautiful as my artwork is. So, but I was in this thing called, I'm gonna call it Merc the Beat. But you know what, where it really goes there. But it was an online cipher. And the thing was, each week they would upload a beat and you would have to rap over that beat. And you would have to do like you would upload your 16 or whatever. It was Instagram, so I think we had like a minute. So we would upload our song, our minute song. And if it was good enough, they would repost it and you would get all these views. And that Merc the Beat cipher actually helped me get through a lot of dark times. It's crazy. Like after my mother passed, that's what I was like each week. What I had to look forward to was murking that beat. Like really, like I hadn't rapped in so many years and I had got back to it. And it really helps you release. I release my pain through my artwork, through my music, through creating. Right now, I'm really like sad and down. And I told myself, I don't care about no YouTube. Forget that crap. Like none of this is doing anything. None of this is getting him closer to home. But I always have to pull myself back in. And I'm like, Keita, instead of staying in that dark spot, let's channel it and make something. So I decided instead, I did 3 videos tonight. So those 3 videos will be coming on my 2 different channels. And that's what we're doing. So this one was from a Merc the Beat weekly challenge. And this song actually was right around the time that he got transferred from when he finally, when I mentioned that he was close to home and they shipped him off because it was this big uproar. It was a fight at Lake and he went from really close to home to way back up off in the country woods. So I wrote this. And I think this is really like, the same feeling I have now, what I had back then. And back then too, it was a hurricane. That is so scary. Like when we have hurricanes and it's like going through where they are, like all we could do is just worry about them. There's no calls going back and forth that they're okay, they're not okay or anything. We just have to worry and hope they're okay. Pray and just hope they're okay. And you got to keep it moving because you can't stay down and depressed because you have your family that is here, that they're depending on you. You have to still work. You have to still, I had to still go to school. Like there was no timeouts because I'm worried about him. So this song right here channels all of that. Okay. It goes like this. They say the storm coming, preparing for the worst, but yet and still I'm hoping. Put God and family first, but devil steady poking. I say my prayers, and if it's lights out, thank God the heavens doors are still open. He and my mind wondering where my baby at. They put him in confinement. It been a couple weeks, ain't heard nothing from him. No phone calls, no visitation. Man, that's all we had. But I can't lose this concentration. Gotta pass this class. Life is so uncertain now. I'm certain now is all we have. So I'ma murk this. It'll be like it was my last. trials and tribulations, but I gotta be patient. Or if I make it to the finish line, I gotta pace it. Only reason that I made it this far is cause His grace is so amazing. Yeah, I'm hot, a trailblazing. Yeah, it's your girl Cadillac. And let's hit that faster. I'm feeling good now. Hold on. They say the storm coming, preparing for the worst, but yet it's still I'm hoping. Put God and family first, but devil steady poking. I say my prayers, and if it's lights, I thank God the heavens doors are still open. Yeah, my mind wondering where my baby at. They put him in confinement. It been a couple weeks, they heard nothing from him. No phone calls, no visitation. Man, this all we had, but I can't lose this concentration. Gotta pass this class. Life is so uncertain now. I'm certain now is all we had, so I'ma murk this and be like it was my last. Trials and tribulations, but I gotta be patient. If I make it to the finish line, I gotta pace it. Only reason that I made it this far, cause His grace is so amazing. Yeah, I'm hot, a trailblazing. Yeah, it's your girl Cadillac.